Welcome to the Copy Closer podcast. I've got such an amazing guest for you today, someone that I follow. He's a person who's in the trenches, in the field, making moves, not someone who did some work a long time ago and then never did it again, right? So this is somebody who I love. I've been following him like crazy. I follow all his copywriting and marketing strategies. I bought his products and his presentations that he has so I can learn myself. His name is Patrick Beauvais. Patrick, did I pronounce your last name or did I screw that up?
You got it. That's perfect.
Okay, good. I cheated because I asked him how to pronounce it beforehand. So I have to admit that. Dude, thanks so much for hopping on the show. For anybody who doesn't know you, do you think you could do maybe some kind of quick little intro, a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you are now, and then we'll dive into a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, I've always loved selling, Carlos. Ever since I was a little kid, I would like going door to door with candies for the Cub Scouts, and I joined the Olympic Sales Club, which was this little group for kids where you could go around selling greeting cards, wrapping paper, candy, all that stuff. And I would make the rounds and just like try to empty the neighbors' pockets, basically. And I leveraged my cuteness as a kid. But I'm 41, and that doesn't work anymore. You knock on the door and they just say go away. So I think I found myself in the right place. But it was a backdoor way to get into copywriting. I never started out. I didn't go to school for it, for starters. If that's possible. I did not really know what I was doing. I just sort of backed into a job in marketing at Agora back in 2006. And I got a job. It was the most basic entry-level job you could possibly have, laying out the newsletters each day and plugging in ads and making sure the lift notes and emails went out properly and reporting and that sort of thing. So basic building block stuff. But at the time, that smaller division of Agora didn't have any in-house copywriters. So they were all freelancers, and it was kind of like herding cats. I couldn't find them sometimes, and there was a gap and I had to write something. I'm like, okay, how about this? And so I'd write space ads, I'd write lift notes just to fill in. And, that went on for a few months here and there. And then one day my boss came to me and said, Patrick, we're going to make you a copywriter. And I said, oh, that sounds a lot more fun than making links and doing this HTML stuff. Yeah, let's do it.
So you started not even as so did you talked about having this Olympic sales club or something. How old were you there? You were a lot younger then, right? I
was probably 10 or 11 years old.
Okay. So you didn't go from 10 to working at Agora. So what happened in between that? Did you have any sales experience beforehand, or how did you even hear about Agora? What made you go apply there?
My life took a kind of a weird turn. I worked in the horse racing business for about 10 years. I fell in love with horses. I loved the racetrack scene. I loved the intellectual challenge of figuring out the puzzle of what horse is going to win. And it just, I don't know. I just got bit by this bug, and I worked in that industry. I majored in horse racing. Actually, I got an animal science degree from the University of Arizona. And my dream at the time was to work in marketing at the racetrack and somehow save the horse racing industry, which is not doing so well across the country. I mean, there's still the Kentucky Derby, there's still the Breeders' Cup and these big races, but in general, you go to the average track on the weekend and there's 5,000 people there, if that, and they're all over the age of 70, and it's not a healthy sport. And so I had this fantasy that I was going to somehow go in, I was going to be the new blood, and I was going to shake things up, and but that just didn't happen. It just so after 10 years of sort of discovering that and banging my head against the wall, I just realized this is not working. I felt like an assembly line worker, in a fancy car factory that couldn't afford the car that I was building. And I just felt what the hell am I doing with my life? This is no good. And so I started looking for a change, and I stumbled across an ad on the old, I don't even know if this website still exists, monster.com.
Yeah, I think it does. I don't know. Maybe not.
And I found it was an entry-level marketing job. And so I applied for this job at Agora. That was in 2006. And they didn't get back to me for a month. I thought, oh, crap. I really wanted this job. I thought the interview went well. Damn it, I guess they didn't like me.
So you didn't actually know who Agora was at this time? You just found him on Monster and kind of applied just as if it was like any other company.
Yeah, well, they were in Baltimore and I was in Baltimore, which was convenient. But I didn't know anything about direct response marketing, and I didn't know who Agora was or what they were. I didn't realize they were the big granddaddy of direct response. And to be honest, I thought it all sounded like a scam. I thought, what do you mean you send emails out and people send you money? This is ridiculous.
That's not real at all.
And all the messages of this group, it was called the Sour Society, had to do with offshore, asset protection and buying gold and silver and all this stuff at the time to me, which seemed a little bit sketchy. I had not fully developed into a libertarian yet. So I didn't know, it just didn't seem possible, but at the time I just needed a change. I needed to try something else, and this seemed kind of cool. So I thought, oh, okay, let's just try it out and see what happens.
So, okay. So you go to work at Agora, and then you're basically, it sounds like you're a floater almost, like kind of doing different things here and there, filling in the gaps, right?
Yeah.
And then you got an opportunity to write some copy, and you became a copywriter officially. So what happens in that case? Does anything actually change in your world? Do you just get a new title? What happens from there where you become a copywriter officially?
Agora is such a funny place for titles. They have like the worst title inflation ever. So I came in with an email. My first job there was email marketing manager, and it was just, I was managing me.
Yeah.
Paper. You can't really put that in the bank, but I guess it can make you feel good.
Yeah.
And, I started off in that job, and it evolved into copy, and it evolved into a copy/editorial job. I even got involved with the managing editor of their flagship newsletter. And I'm in Baltimore, and I had to fly down to Florida once a month and manage a whole team of 8 editors who squeeze all their ideas into one single issue. And I was trying to balance that and copy at the same time. And I remember I went to my boss at the time and asked him for a raise, because it just I was doing a lot of work, and he kind of pushed back a bit on the raise. And then that's how the decision kind of got made when they came to me and said, we're going to make you a copywriter. I said, good. I mean, I want to give me a shot to earn some royalties. I mean, if you're not going to give me a big raise, then at least give me some upside. And so I took that path, and it was such an adventure, Carlos. It was just within months I was on a plane to Paris, and I was flying out there to meet Bill Bonner at his.
So who's Bill Bonner? Who, for the folks who don't know who he is?
So Bill Bonner is like the founding father of Agora, and he's just a brilliant copywriter and the best newsletter writer in the history of the world. And he's grown. He's on paper, he's a billionaire. The company's been so successful. The company's a $1 billion company. And he invests a lot in real estate. One of the things Agora does is they bought and they fixed up a ton of old brownstones in Baltimore, beautiful old section of Baltimore that looks like a European city called Mount Vernon. And they renovated them top to bottom. And he also bought two chateaus in France. And so massive.
That's a castle, essentially. That's
yes.
A castle.
It's a castle.
He bought himself 2 castles.
And he renovated them partly himself. Like Bill's such an interesting cat, because not only is he this incredibly talented writer and leader, but he'll go and scrape and paint the shutters himself. He'll put on the roof of a house or patch the leak himself. He drives a beat up pickup truck, not a Lamborghini. So he's a really interesting sort of a guy. And I had never met him before. And so here I was flying to Paris and hopping on a train out to the countryside to visit the chateau, and with a whole mess of other copywriters. There were like 30 or 40 of us going on this trip, and this beautifully renovated chateau. And we just camped out there for a few days, and we talked copy. John Ford was there. A number of other high-end Agora writers were there. And at nighttime, we just sat around, drank wine, and ate some cheese, and played guitar. And it was a fantasy. I felt like I really felt like Harry Potter going to Hogwarts. I couldn't believe it. I was pinching myself thinking, is this really happening? Is this really happening? It was such a major turning point in my life. And it just kept getting better and better and better.
So how long did it take you before you were able to go to France and go on this amazing trip? I mean, had you been working at Agora for like 5 years already, or what?
That was about 2 years. I've been working at Agora about 2 years. And I remember I'm traveling there with my buddy Ryan Fletcher and a couple other copywriters from Sovereign, and we had such a good time.
That's so cool. So when you guys go there, you're obviously connecting, you're getting to know each other, but I'm assuming it's a business meeting, right? You guys are masterminding, talking about how you can increase your results and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it was a practical meeting of sorts. We had a couple of days of fun on the front end. We stayed at a Best Western Paris before we went to the chateau. But that when we were there, it was all business. We were critiquing each other's copy all day. There were presentations on how to do everything from structuring your long form copy to writing effective bullets, everything in between. And so it was really useful. And it was a little intimidating at that point too, just being around all these experienced copywriters. And I didn't want to how do you present yourself to them? I mean, it's sort of like you want to learn from them, you want to befriend them, you want to maybe get a mentor, but and there's so much to soak up as well. This trip's going to pass in the blink of an eye, and all these great folks are surrounding you. So I just was sitting there thinking, how do I get the most out of this I possibly can? This is not going to happen very often. I knew it was a really special moment, and it was great. It was just a great jumping off point for me. It really just jazzed me up about becoming a copywriter. It made me feel like I was on the right path.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So is that how you actually ended up learning copy? I've always been fascinated by this because a lot of people, when they're actually, even to this day, there aren't that many courses on how to write copy. A lot of it is kind of trial by fire. You hire a mentor, they pay you to write. This is how I actually teach some of my students. I have them write copy for some of my offers that I run. I run traffic to it. I split test it against my copy. We see who wins and we get better, But to me, there's so many different ways that people have learned copy. How did you start learning copy?
Well, we took the AWI course together as a group, and then they enrolled us in some other programs similar to that, where there were group setting classes on conference calls. But the thing about working at Agora, which was so cool, it was like a learning laboratory with an almost unlimited budget. So I quickly abandoned all the course material, and I said, why am I even messing around with this stuff? This is like, I just want to write copy and just put it out there in the world and see what happens, because the market's ultimately the judge of if it's good copy or not. And so I did, and we wrote copy. I wrote copy for events. I got to travel to Panama, to Bermuda, to Los Cabos, Mexico, and be the conference reporter and sell audio for events. I got to write front-end copy, back-end copy, all kinds of copy, and it was so much fun. And I was learning and earning at the same time, which is what. This is what blows my mind. A lot of times copywriters don't want to move to Baltimore. They're like, I don't want to, they've seen The Wire, or they got roots somewhere else, which I understand. But man, it's just like, it truly is like an Ivy League college education in direct response. And you exit it without any debt. You exit it with money. So it's just, I've never understood why more people aren't willing to come to Baltimore. It's transformed my life. And I did it accidentally. I didn't come to Baltimore for this experience. I was lucky enough to be plopped down in this area where it's the copywriting capital of the world. But man, it has changed my life completely.
It's funny that you bring that up. I've talked about that with my buddy Jake Hoffberg. I don't know if you know Jake, and other people, right? And we've always had this kind of debate, should we go freelancer? Should you go in-house and all this thing? I think people have this fantasy when they become copywriter. I know I did. Oh, I'm never going to have a job again. I'm just going to write in my boxers and travel the world. Or that was my fantasy, right? And so that's all cool and stuff. But I didn't actually realize, when I first got started, I would have probably done everything I could have to move to Baltimore, because I had no clients, I had no name, I had no rep, I had nothing. If someone was willing to pay me even $2,000 a month or whatever it is to just learn, it would have been ridiculous, right? But you kind of have to know where you are mentally, I think. I think some people think they want to be freelancers, but they don't really want freelance. They don't want to be a freelancer. They want to have a lot of money, or maybe they want some kind of freedom, or, you just kind of have to figure out what you want, because there are probably more people that I've met who are successful copywriters that all came from Agora. Like you can be an employee and be $1 million person and be an employee copywriter. So you got to figure out, I think, are you really just chasing this freelancer dream that's just kind of, you don't even know what it is, or are you just trying to get ahead in life? Because there's two different paths. Both of them can make you tons of money, but to neglect this, quote unquote employee route is kind of silly, because essentially a copywriter, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of like a salesperson, right? You get commission, you got your base salary. I mean, it's a pretty sweet freaking deal. And if you're able to convert and make money, I mean, the opportunity is through the roof, right?
Yeah, I mean, the best, not even the top copywriters, just good copywriters make well into six figures, every year. The best ones could make, $500,000 or more. And in addition to that, you get your 401k, you get your benefits, all the benefits of a job and the safety net of a salary, and you're also surrounded by all these other great copywriters. And so it accelerates your development in ways you could never do through a course or on your own. And it's just an irreplaceable experience. And what I like to preach is skills before lifestyle. Skills before lifestyle, because I think you're right, Carlos. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, so many folks just want to chase that fantasy. They want to chase that dream of being on the beach or just working from wherever in their boxers. And the truth is, you can have that, but you just have to earn it. You have to earn it. And then once you get to the right level, companies will fall all over themselves to hire you, and they won't care what you're wearing or where you're working from because you're so darn good. But you got to get to that point first before you've demonstrated that value, and then you can earn that type of a living.
That's so true. I've talked to a few copywriters I've worked with Agora branches, and they said the same thing. They were like, hey, listen, man, I had to work my first year or 2 years in-house doing all this stuff. But once I hit my first winner, they didn't even care. They just, as long as I get the stuff done. But generally, you know, I don't know. This is why I love talking to you, because, again, get this inside info. I have just this sneaky suspicion that if you're working in-house at a company like Agora, you're going to be light years ahead of the person who may be making a little bit more money right now as a freelancer, but you're going to be light years ahead of them skill-wise. And if you can market yourself afterwards, you can be light years ahead of them that way, because there's no better education for copy than working in-house just doing copy. As a freelancer, you're not really just a copywriter. You have to worry about traffic. You have to worry about closing deals. You have to worry about managing clients. You have to worry about writing copy. A copywriter who works in-house has to do one job: write good freaking copy. So if you're cranking out really good copy there, you're going to progress, but your skill level is going to go, I mean, it's just going to naturally get better. You're going to start surpassing a lot of the freelancers who may be closing deals faster simply. And I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it with myself. There's people who can close deals really well, but they may not be able to fulfill it, so they only close the deal one time, right? And that's not good. If you can develop this skill, man, that takes you so much further ahead, you know?
Yeah. And I spoke to a freelancer recently, and it's interesting about what do people think of as a success? So you posed this question once on Facebook, and I thought it was great. You had this amazing long thread. Remember, even Porter Stansberry weighed in, where he basically said, like, at what level would you?
Yes. When Porter Stansberry weighed in, I think I screenshotted it.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap. I just printed in crossing my fingers something would happen. He actually commented.
I said the same thing. I'm like, this is awesome. Wow. That's great for you that he's following your post. But yeah, I mean, I think I was chatting with this one freelancer who had gotten to he's been at this for like 10 years. I thought his copy is really good, and we're going to be working with him on a project. But he was telling me that his income had topped out around $140,000 a year. And I thought, oh God, I mean, that's a whole, I mean, for that would be a disaster for any one of our experienced copywriters. If they had a year like that, they would be like at the bar, just like crying at the end of the year. And we're just like, well, maybe they wouldn't, maybe somebody would have to buy them a drink, I guess. But it's just,
they could barely afford a beer with that 140,000.
I mean, that's just,
those gross fucks.
And that just shows you how crazy this, I mean, in the real world, that's a ton of money for the average person, but not in the world of copywriting, not in the realm of skilled copywriters. And this guy wasn't even asking for royalties traditionally. He was just asking for a flat fee. And I thought, oh my God, I mean, I just can't so I'm going to treat him really, really well. I'm going to give him a shot to work with us. And if it works out, I'd love to have him on my team. But it just blew me away because I really respect this guy, and I respect the work he's done. And I just couldn't believe that he had topped out at that level. And thankfully for him, he's not accepting it. He was looking for other opportunities. But I wonder how many freelancers are out there that get to 100K and they think, okay, I've made it. I'm a six-figure copywriter. This is it. But they don't realize they could be making 2 or 3 or 4 times that much if they're talented and by working in-house. And I don't know, it's a balancing act, right? It's some people just love the idea of being out there, the freedom of choosing their project, but there's some benefits to specializing too.
Oh, absolutely. And just like I was saying before, I mean, that 140, like the first goal I had was like, oh my gosh, if I can make 10 grand a month as a copywriter, I'll be rich, right? That was because I was on food stamps. I didn't even have $1,000 a month. So I was like, I'll be rich. But once you hit that, you're like, man, I'm really broke, because especially now as a freelancer, you don't just pocket 10 grand or 50 grand or whatever it is a month. You have costs now. You really, like, the only way I get clients is if I do retargeting ads or my personal profile. That means I have costs. Like that 10 grand, maybe like 3 grand went into ads that nobody talks about. And then if you pay taxes, if you like to do that stuff, you're not keeping the other 7 grand either. So it starts dwindling down and down and down, and you're not even developing. It's funny because I'm almost making a case against freelancing, because I think some people, I think they jump into freelancing a little too big or too soon, right? They just say, hey, you know, I was a really good salesperson. Let me go become a freelance copywriter. I'm like, man, why don't you just get a job as a copywriter, learn the foundation. Then if you decide you want to go do this as a freelancer, go do it. But you're not just jumping in to become a copywriter at this point. Now you're jumping into, I have to learn how to build funnels. I have to learn how to run traffic. I have to learn how to do this. And if you don't, you have to learn how to manage people and get along with people who do that for you. So it's just, there's so many more benefits, and there's a lot of upside to be able to work with a company that has massive growth, that's proven itself in the sense that other copywriters are already successful, and they have been for generations, like 20 plus years, people have been successful with Agora. It's not like this is a questionable path, you know what I mean?
Not at all. I mean, and people just, and once we tell people, once you have this skill, you can go anywhere, you can do anything. I mean, nobody's trapped, you know, like it's just an investment. It's an investment of time. If you take 3 to 5 years in-house, I mean, if and you progress through that time, you'll be such a badass copywriter. You could work for anyone, anywhere, and make a lot of money. We could say with confidence, if you get to that level, you'll never have to worry about money the rest of your life, because it's wherever you go. I know, like wherever I go to these high level meetings, everybody's looking for copywriters. Everybody's looking for, and there just aren't any. There aren't any. Like, there's plenty of folks who are hungry to be copywriters and who have potential as juniors, but they're going to take a lot of work. And they're worth it. But the guys who have put in the 3 to 5 years to advance that level, so where they know enough to be dangerous, they're independent, they can get work done, they're accountable, and they have a strong track record, man, they're not available. Right. They're not available. They don't even, because whoever is working with them is so focused on keeping them happy as hell and holding on as tight as they can, they don't float around that much.
That's so true.
Who wouldn't want that? I mean, that's like, what an incredible point of pride and security you could have in your life just by, if you can invest just that's about the same time most people spend in college just thinking around.
That's so true. And they go into debt.
Yeah. And the degree is just worth nothing. Unless you go to a specialized field, it's really worth nothing. It's just diddly squat.
Right. Of course. 3 to 5 years, man, that's serious. I mean, it's not even, if you look at your lifespan, I think of death all the time. I don't want to turn this into a weird kind of call, but I think of death all the time. I mean, I'm 32, maybe I'm going to live to my 80s. If I'm lucky, I'll live into 100. I don't know. But the first 20, 30 years of my life are just washed. It's all gone. So you have to really be like careful about how you spend your time. Are you going to spend 10 years fucking around, crossing your fingers, figuring out if by the time you're 50, 60, 70, you did the right path, you did the right thing? Or is it better to just go down a path that's already been proven? Like you're saying, 3 to 5 years really isn't a long time, especially when you're thinking of your lifespan. 3 to 5 years to gain life security. I know, I mean, for example, and I love Clayton Makepeace. I've worked with him one time with Money Map when I did a project with him. I learned tons of stuff with him. And I remember looking at him like, this is a person, I mean, this is how I want to be to a degree in this position where, I actually don't know his position, but this is just from the outside looking in. I'm like, this guy is a badass. He's famous, all this stuff, but he's got such job security. I mean, who wouldn't want Clayton Makepeace to write for them? You know, whether it's his style or not. I mean, you've got that job security. So if anyone were to dedicate 3 to 5 years and get good with you guys, that's job security in itself. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a huge investment in your life, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. One guy I worked with when I started with Stansbury, he went off, his name was Jason Hansen, and he worked with us, I think, for 5 or 6 years. And then he, next thing we know, he was gone, and he showed up on Shark Tank, and he put this idea for the spy escape and evasion business that would basically train people how to do all this, how to escape from handcuffs and all this other stuff, like how to get out of the locked trunk of a car. And
it's like SEER training. That's funny.
Hugely successful, and I think he ended up selling a part of his business to Agora Financial at some point. But anyway, he built it into something pretty big, and he did it by leveraging his copywriting skills that he learned with us. So it's just, man, but he put in the time, and he was a very hard worker, very disciplined, and he didn't cut corners, and he earned it. You know, just there's just no limit to what you can do. You can go to charity work. People want to raise money for charity, or they can do that. They can start their own business. There's but once you have this core skill, man, there's nothing you can't do.
So true. And you know, it's once you can write good copy, you can do your own offers, you can work with a big publisher, a big company. You can also partner up with people. I mean, there's more business that I've made now by partnering up with others, because a lot of Facebook ad people, like, so I started as a freelance, you just got to figure out all these ways to make money, right? Because you're freelancing, right? So writing for clients, that was cool. That was a one-time deal. But one of the ways I was able to kind of make a bit more money was, rather than just say, hey, give me 10 grand to write this or whatever it might be, I would partner up with people who are experts at running traffic, and they put their own money behind their traffic, meaning they really knew what they were doing. And so I would partner up with them and say, hey man, don't pay me a single penny. Let's partner up on a deal. Give me 30% of the commission or the revenue or the profits and whatnot. And let's see what happens. Let's pick a niche market and we just figure it out. And it's a no-brainer, because if you're able to convert, and you know your skill as a copywriter, if you actually know what you're doing and you can get a great traffic person behind you, that's the magic right there. I mean, to be honest, we jump into different niche markets, like in the religious niche. I'm not a religious person, but we're doing fairly well in the religious niche. And all it is good copy, great traffic, and a product that we bought the rights to. So we didn't even create the product. That was secondary. The most important thing was we had to figure out, who are we targeting? Can we get eyeballs to this page? And was the copy able to convert? So when you've got that skill, you're 100% right. You can work for a company, you can do your own stuff, but you can also partner with people and leverage their skills with yours to make a lot more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you see that that's working right now? I mean, you've been in this game since 2006. You've coached a lot of people. Do you mind if we talk a little bit, actually, before? Well, maybe we can talk about it here. I heard some really cool rumors about a sales promotion that you wrote. I don't want to drop the numbers because I don't know if we can say the numbers, but it blew my mind. I almost fell out of my chair. So could we talk a little bit about that, actually, about some of the stuff that you're doing in that sense?
Yeah, I can't go into super detail on what that package was because our,
it's still running.
It's running like it's like 3-4 years in now. But I don't honestly think that it'd be easy to knock off anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just, one of the greatest, that just brings me to a point where, like, the best place you can get to as a copywriter is when you have not just one control, but multiple controls out there. And it's almost like they're layered, right? You have this one here, this one here, this one here, this one here. And in the areas where they overlap, that's where you get your biggest royalty checks. So that's the pipe dream of most copywriters. And that's what's possible if you pursue this career diligently. You can craft your own situation in your own business or within a business like Stansberry, where you have this sort of situation coming in. And so that's my favorite sort of idea to work on, where you have just multiple layers, where it's going to run forever, has potential to run forever.
And so when people don't know what a control is, that's a promotion that's been running for a long time. No one's been able to beat it, right? Yeah. And so do you get royalties on this control?
Yeah, we do get royalties. So this, as long as it's running, which is really neat. So there's a built-in incentive to keep it running, of course. So, which is great. It works out for the business. It works out for me. I'll keep fine tuning it. I'll keep updating the script and all the little pieces of copy. I've brought in another senior copywriter from Stansberry to help with that. And it's continuing to run, and it's become the top selling product at Stansberry. And it's selling for, it's a $30,000 product basically right now. So it's a lifetime membership.
That's
now, granted, I'm not getting anywhere near 30%.
Yeah. But this is, I'm talking about 30% on companies doing like maybe $1 million, maybe.
But it's cool. Life is expensive, especially I got two boys who are 4 and 7, and there's a lot of, lot down the line. I think about life and death a lot too. I think about the future and what I want it to look like. And, but this helps, this sort of thing helps. It helps get you to where you want to be in life in terms of your retirement savings, or doing something nice for the family, or just, we're putting a screened-in porch in the back of our house now. And this is all stuff that would have been unthinkable years ago before I started doing this. Unthinkable. Just, I used to have to go to Goodwill hunting basically to stay afloat. I would go to Goodwill and I would sell stuff that I found there, on eBay and stuff like that, or just to bring it back to stores and try to get store credit, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow.
And I just to make an extra $5,000, so I could take my wife out to dinner here and there. But now it's at a whole another level. And of course, there's also the fear of losing that comes to it. You get to a certain level of success, you want to maintain it. Yeah. So there's an intensity built into it. Like I really don't want to backslide ever. So I'm constantly working and trying to come up with new ways to do what I'm trying to do, because I'm always leery that you can't sit on your laurels in this business. No matter how successful you are, somebody else is going to come along and eat your lunch. If you let them, they will, because there's just too much money at stake. And it could be somebody within the company, or it could be an entire competitor, or it could be so I'm always, my biggest fear is always just losing my edge. And because I've seen it happen with other copywriters. I've seen it happen with folks who've been in the business for a while who kind of like start coasting a bit. And I just don't want to be that guy. So
how do you keep that edge? How do you stay deadly?
It's really, you know what, I don't know if you believe me, but this is the truth. I've just always been really, what I like to do is I like to be as generous as possible, because it makes me feel good to help other copywriters, whether they're in our business or folks on the internet. But also by helping them, like if I teach somebody a cool trick or a technique that I know, or I break down a package for them in a way that lights them up, and they learn how to do it too, then that puts the pressure on me to do something better. So in a way, I'm very competitive, but I don't want to hold anybody down or prevent anybody else from rising up. I want them to rise up, because that'll force me to rise up too. And that's how I keep my edge, and that's what I really enjoy. And that's the culture that we've built on our copy team at Stansbury, where we're very much a cohesive group, and there's lots of us will just readily share our copy with whoever else just to get feedback and that sort of thing. And being part of a group is also another way to make sure you don't lose your edge, because if you have a group that's really highly skilled like ours, and they'll weigh in on your copy, they'll offer critiques, and I see things. And our copy chief, I'm running the team now, but my mentor and former copy chief, Mike Palmer.
Wow, now that's the copy chief too. Damn, what a killer lineage! You, Mike Palmer, who the fuck wouldn't want to work with you guys?
It's great. It's been great to work with Mike this whole time to soak up the knowledge. But even Mike benefits that he'll send his copy around for review, and he's a copywriting god if there ever was one. So. Because you can't see everything. When you write something, you get so close to it, you can't possibly, there's some flaws in there that you can't see, or there's a way that it can be improved. And no matter how good you get, somebody else will spot it and you can't. And so that's another way to stay sharp, is just by being part of a group, and a group that looks out for each other and helps each other. And it's honest, and, sometimes delivers the tough news if something really stinks,
Yeah.
Not everything is great. But,
I love it. I heard you talking about in one of your presentations in the past about how we're almost coming into this time where you're either going to be a full-blown black hat marketer or a white hat person. This day and age of being in this gray line is kind of disappearing. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think I feel pretty strongly about that, but I think it's in a way it depends to a great degree on what channels you're marketing in. Every channel is somewhat different. And by that, I mean, if you're advertising something, running it on Yahoo Finance versus Google, versus Facebook versus email versus ad networks versus affiliates, there's all kinds of different standards. And so, it's a fractured sort of a marketing world that we're living in now. And in the old days, the good old days, I guess, you could just write one piece of copy and it would run everywhere. And you'd write a few lift notes or a few variations more, and it would just that was so much simpler than the world we're living in now. Now it feels like you have to be able to be willing and able to craft a message that not only sells, but one that's going to be compliant if you do want to tap into this wider networks, and that's really challenging. That's a challenge that the entire direct marketing space is wrestling with right now. But the white hat, black hat divide I see is just sort of a business decision, where a business has to basically choose what path they're on, and they have to be consistent with it. And it's not that it's only black hat or white hat, but it's that if you can't do both, because if you make one mistake, if you're trying to be white hat but you do something a little bit black hat, that's going to color the entire company's reputation, and that could effectively take you down. And we've seen Facebook, for example, which is was a very important avenue for ads, tighten up substantially in the past year or so. And the lengths to which they're going, it's incredible. I mean, they're not only reviewing copy at the ad level and your landing page and that sort of thing, the VSL, they're going through funnels, they're buying products, they're reviewing, they're trying to determine what you're offering matches up to what you're promising and what is the quality of the product. And so that's why I say I feel like we're evolving to a black hat or white hat sort of a world, because and it's going to depend. I mean, there's certain businesses that can live on the fringe, and there's still plenty of money on the fringe, but
I've always thought there was so much money on that fringe. That's when I jump into these little niche markets, I try to tap as close to that gray line as possible because I know that's just so much money right there. But once you cross over, it's, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and there's big problems that result from it too. There's some businesses that are having trouble with Visa and MasterCard with chargebacks, that sort of thing, and they could be in trouble with that. And that to me is scary. So because I'm not in any way against aggressive marketing or copy. It's just that I think we should only be aggressive when we have a product we believe in that we think could truly change people's lives, and we should try to do our best to match the product up with the right customer. And
I love it.
That way, because if you match up the wrong product for the wrong customer, it doesn't matter how good the product is. The result is going to be an angry customer who wants a refund, who's complaining about it and causing a big stink and blocking your ad on Facebook. And so I think we just need to be, we need to be careful. I'm urging the industry as a whole. I'm trying to coach folks to be more careful and not to defang their advertising by any stretch, but just to be careful about how we're representing the products that we're selling, and only really pound your chest and shout about something when it's really a classic, a very classy product that you'd want your own family to use or that sort of thing. So that's what
well, it's a really good point. I wanted to bring that up because especially now, I know a lot of people who are in the e-commerce space that they basically just do black hat stuff. I mean, they like straight up those, and here's their strategy. It's a really smart strategy. I do it too, just not with that bad stuff. The strategy works. So what they'll do is they'll sell a compliant product on Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. That you can't, like on Facebook, just like what you're saying, Facebook doesn't even allow you to use the word you anymore. Like when I write my copy now for my own funnels and stuff, I can't even use the best converting words. I can't say you, I can't say all these different things, and so one of the things that they do to sell their non-compliant stuff, and I'll bring this back, is they'll sell a compliant thing on the front end for $5, $2, $3, whatever, super cheap. But everything afterwards is a non-compliant offer, and it's all one-click upsells. So it sounds like that'd be really cool, but here's the issue. If you have a bunch of people running through there and just clicking all these one-click offers, you could have a very big chargeback issue, right? Mm-hmm. So I started doing that, and that's what I realized. I was like, oh, crap, we're selling a bunch, but we've got a 1% chargeback rate, which means my merchant account's probably going to get shut down soon. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. And so one of the ways we figured it out was we actually put in this, maybe you guys have noticed, this is really interesting. I was told it would reduce conversions, but it didn't even really affect it. It just reduced chargebacks. I put a telephone, I just got a Google Voice number. I put a telephone number on the front page, on the sales page. And then I put, if you ever have questions about, refunds, cancellations, or anything, you can call this number or you can email us at this Gmail address. It wasn't even like a professional email. It's a Gmail address. And like a 480 area code telephone number from Arizona, right? Not even a 1-800 number. And so we have is people who want refunds or want to charge back. They're now calling in and saying, hey, I accidentally ordered this instead of that. And so now we're getting very little chargebacks. And if we have to refund anybody, that's fine. I don't care about that. I just don't want my merchant account to get shut down, Yeah. But the reason I was bringing all that up, it's so interesting for me to hear all of these different things that Agora is doing because you guys are this giant, and you guys are adapting so quickly. I think a lot of people aren't adapting as quickly because they're not feeling the pain. If you guys run an offer and it's not compliant, you're going to adjust, I would assume, fairly quickly, right? It's a deal. But if we're only running $100 a day or $200 a day on Facebook ads, there's some things that we may be able to do that'll slide that may not work at scale. What are some tactical things that you've noticed that could really help a lot of copywriters and just a lot of marketers in general with this whole compliance issue that's going on nowadays?
It's really if you break it down, it really just comes down to being a better storyteller, and because learning how to leverage every shred of context, learning history, and just telling stories, and because there's no such thing as obviously if you start with a great product, that's a big advantage too. But I think that where a lot of copywriters run into trouble is when they follow a formula or they just they're just trying to sell the sizzle and just talk about the upside of something and how everything's happy, shiny, rainbow, unicorn, fairy tale land. And they ignore they just ignore an entire side of the story. And that's going to come across, first off, that's going to be way against policy anyway, and anywhere. And it's also just not honest. It's not going to connect with the customer. You're probably going to turn off a lot of folks who are just calling BS on it. So I encourage all our writers to really just leverage every shred of context and become a student of whatever you're studying. Just know it better than anybody else, and just dig in. And when you do that and you allow your kind of subconscious to go to work, you come to work with great ideas. And not every one of them is going to sell, of course. Like none of us has a perfect batting average. But I think it's just about just taking the time to really just get to know a product and research. And research is the first and most important step of a great sales letter. You have to be willing to do that. If that's the only way to come up with a great big new idea. And that's the sort of thing that's going to get you that control, that gives you the chance to write a piece of copy that runs and runs and runs for years at a time. So I think I would just encourage copywriters not to take the easy way out, and not just look for the quickest path to sell the sizzle, but just to find a way to make the story meaningful and make it jump off the page. I consider it my sacred duty to really help our customers understand the world, help them, provide them. The service I provide is to simplify a very complex world and help give them a narrative that explains what the heck is going on around them so that they feel confident, they feel informed, they feel smart, and then also give them the way to profit, because we're selling financial research. And I think that's when you do that and structure it the right way, your sales letter is not just a sales piece anymore. It's a cathartic experience for them. It's going to open up whole avenues of thought to them they didn't know existed. It's going to help them feel so much more connected and in control of their life. And that in a way is just that's a form of reciprocity, even though it's not like the classic reciprocity, like the Hare Krishna is handing you that flower at the airport, like Cialdini,
right,
and expecting you to give them a donation in return. This is a form of reciprocity that's based on an exchange of information that was valuable to them. And you can't do that with a puffy sales piece. I mean, so it's just, if a writer's willing to put in the time and provide something of value that has standalone value, it can go a long way.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man, but it's first thing that comes to my mind is identifying stuff that may not be the hottest stuff. Like it's that old trick of, here's what's wrong with the product or something, right? You can identify, is that some of the stuff you're talking about as well? Really, when you say, hey, fully be honest, know the research, are you saying that type of stuff as well? Like identify maybe some of the faults?
Sure. The faults could be, the fault could be, nobody's going to believe this product works every time without fail in every single possible environment. That's just crazy. There's nothing that works that well. So I think the burdens on the copywriters show that, look, this works really well in this specific time. And this time is about to repeat. That's like a classic, that's a winning formula, because if you can prove this product works in this specific situation, which is coming back, into the fore, then that's credible, because of course, it doesn't always work. And the burden's on you to prove that this is the environment where it's going to work great. But that makes it much more credible. So not just proof that the product works, but when it works. That's really critical.
That's huge.
And also, when you're telling the story, an origin story of a product, I think so many times I see copywriters, there's the arc of success in the guru's life they're writing about, and the product just looks like this. And it's just like da 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 da, and it's taking off and it's just, that just drives me crazy, because life doesn't work that way. Nobody's life, who on earth, who on earth lives that way? From the bottom left to the upper right. I know that's the ideal stock chart to show, but we all have hit these bumps and potholes along the way, and we get thrown off course, and we're struggling, and we're in pain, and we're confused, and we're lost, and we don't know what the hell we're going to do. We're about to give the whole damn thing up, and then we find something that opens up the world to us, that explains something we didn't understand before, and we act on that. And so it changes everything. So that's the narrative we structure in our copy has to mirror the narrative of real life. It has to seem like something authentic and real. Otherwise, it just seems fake to me. And I think it seems fake to a lot of readers too.
Oh my gosh, dude, you're hitting the nail on the head. And I can already tell the people who study copy under you really get a great education, because you're able to actually, how do I even say it? See, you're better at me than this. You're able to articulate certain shit. I gotta say shit. You're able to articulate certain shit that most people wouldn't be able to do, or we would gloss over. But because you're able to articulate and point these things out, now we're aware of them. Just the fact that, when you just said, no one's life goes up like this. That's so true. I notice in my copy, whenever I write certain things, my little intro, my story or whatnot about the guru, or if it's myself, it generally will do that exact same thing. So, I mean, just this is selfish for me now. I'm learning everybody needs to hear the story. Nobody's story is straight up like this. So we want to include those bumps in the road. So I love that, man. I love that. So what are you doing? I mean, I know you're still working with Agora. What are you doing now? What's next? What's on the plate? What's going on with you now? You're doing so much.
Well, I'm just, where I'm at my own evolution. I've been a senior writer for several years at Stansbury, and this January, Mike Palmer handed me the baton and I became the copy chief. So my new learning curve is just like, well, how do you run a copy team? Like I know I've been observing him all these years. I've mastered the art of copy, and I continue to be a student of copy, but this is a whole new level. So, because now we don't have a huge team, but we have 10 copywriters, and we have at least 10 different projects going on at any given time. So it's a lot of like traffic, really understanding like what's going on, is this person ahead or behind? Is this project on track or not? Where can I jump in and help? And depending on where those copywriters are, it could be 10 different ways I could jump in and help in any given time. And it's very exciting and stimulating, but also a little daunting, to be honest, because it's just at this point in my career, it's just so easy just to nestle myself in my office here and just crack a book and start researching and put together a promo. I mean, I could write faster than ever before. I'm not saying it's super easy to crank out a hit, of course, but the process of writing a copy package is very pleasurable and easy to me to do. But this is a whole new challenge. So yeah, I'm learning in real time, just the way I learned copy, throw me into the mix. And, there's certain things I think I've done well. There's certain things that I'm learning I could do better. And it's just every day, every week is another discovery. And it's just, what it really is amazing to me though, is just like the power of your mind. Like if you think back to, I bet you'll experience the same thing. When you get started in this business, certain things might have overwhelmed you or caused you a great deal of stress. And you just wondered, like, do I even want to do this, man? This sucks. But then somehow you overcome it and you figure out a way to either systematize it or your skill level increases and it's not a big deal anymore. But then there's another hump, like there's the next thing. It's like, oh crap, how do I do this? And that's just like, to me, that's what my career has felt like, that a series of like, oh crap, how am I going to do this? Oh, okay, I figured it out. Oh crap, how am I going to do this? Oh, I figured that out. And it just like, and it never stops, just like and that's the way I want it. I want, as much as I love writing copy, and some weeks I think, geez, I really wish I was just writing copy because it's so much fun. But I know I want to keep challenging myself and learning and growing. So this is really the perfect setup for that, because there's a continual stream of problems or challenges coming at me every single day. And I have to figure something out. Either I have to solve it, or I have to find somebody else who can help me solve it, or something.
Yeah.
Nothing about it. So it's been a really stimulating experience so far.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. I mean, it sounds like Agora really gives you the platform to level up as a human being, not just financially. Obviously, the financial stuff you do, the work you do, that's all part of who we are as humans. And so it's really cool to hear that you're actually, when I hear you say that, I hear that this is a self-development tool. That's how I process it. So you're like, yeah. I write copy, I teach people, I meet these challenges because it makes me a better human. So if anybody's interested in becoming a better human and writing killer copy, how can people, are you even hiring copywriters still? Are you looking for copywriters, freelancers, employees, or on teams? So like, how does that work?
Yeah, we're looking for experienced copywriters. So
what's that mean? Because
folks,
someone says, I'm experienced. I've had like 30 days.
3 or 4 years ideally. And, maybe if they've sold like $10 million net back end, those people who can come in and make an immediate difference, but they also recognize they have a long way to go and there's lots to learn. We all have so much to learn. That's what we're looking for. And occasionally we do bring on a class of juniors. A couple of years ago, we brought on 6 or 7 fresh, totally green. And I trained them for 1.5 years, and that was a cool experience, but I can't be doing that forever. So otherwise I just would never get anything done.
Of course.
But right now we're looking for experienced freelancers or folks that want to work in-house. And I would encourage anybody who's interested to reach out to me. They can find me through Fearless Copy on Facebook. And just give it a shot. We're not looking for folks who are just starting out though, because I don't have the time or bandwidth right now to train them. But I do encourage those folks to follow along with me in my Facebook group. And I consider it almost like a farm team. This is such a small world we operate in this direct marketing space. You never know who's coming up. And I just want to reach out and establish relationships with them, because maybe even 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years down the line, we might end up working together. Who knows? And that'd be fun. But right now, in this exact moment, we're looking for folks who can come in and move the needle. So if you think that's you and you're listening to this, I would love to hear from you. Just reach out to me on Fearless Copy on Facebook, and I'd be happy to get in touch with you.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And Fearless Copy, is that your private Facebook group? Yeah.
You can just go to fearlesscopy.com and it redirects there. I'm going to break it out. I've not been a great host, honestly, Carlos. I've just I beat myself up all the time.
You've been a great guest. I'll tell you that much.
Well, that makes up for it, I guess, in part. I wish I had more time to help to teach. More than anything, I just want to teach and share and help other people grow. But I just don't have time because the job is all consuming, and that's sort of like my retirement job. I would love to do that someday when I can ease off this, like maybe 10 years from now, and do a lot more teaching, and that would be heaven. But for now, hey, it's a way to stay in touch and bounce ideas around. So
I love it.
To join there. Love to have you in there.
Awesome. So for anybody listening, make sure you go on Facebook, check out is it Fearless Copywriting?
Yeah, Fearless Copywriting. Just go to fearlesscopy.com and it'll redirect you to the Facebook group.
Perfect. Fearlesscopy.com, guys. Fearlesscopy.com. Make sure you check it out. Patrick, man, thank you so much for being on this show. It was an honor for me to have you. I learned a bunch. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, same here, Carlos. I love your energy and enthusiasm and all the great work you're doing. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Let's keep kicking ass. All right, guys. I'll see you guys on the next episode. This is the Copy Closer Podcast, signing off.